Maybe it's Chris Jordan. That's right. That's me. And here's another quick short video about, a couple of radio tips for you. Today specifically is about getting used to the studio and when you're first behind the mic, how it is that you can get a couple of things out of your system and you can immediately start doing some great radio. Right. So don't feel bad. It happens to all of us. When you start doing shows and you get behind the mic, you can have as much academic knowledge about doing a great show and doing radio. But when you get here and you sit and you're about to do your first link, you get kind of overwhelmed. You really don't know what to do, what to say, how to say it, how you're going to sound like, who you're saying it to. It doesn't really matter. But the first thing that does come out is you throw out this alter ego. It's this weird voice it's the weird jock voice that everyone just snaps into in some other way and starts sounding like this. Starts sounding like they raise the eyebrows, very Sean Connery style. Let me just like this as well. It says, well, it's a very, very good morning to you. My name is Chris, and this is a very fine, fine sunny day. Now, that's a little bit extreme. I get it, but it's you got to get out of your system. That is the best way of getting over this hurdle, and it really is one. Get behind the mic. Get into the alter ego so you can actually hear yourself the first, second, third, fourth time until you actually say, I can't sound like that. Don't want to sound like that at all. And it will get out of your system the moment you have your fear conquered for the mic. It's a real thing. The second thing is, it's a great tip I actually got from Ryan Seacrest. Worked on his show a couple of years ago, and Ryan actually cuts out a picture of the typical listener that the station and the show and the format is targeted to puts it out in front of him. And when he does a show, he speaks directly to the core of what that audience wants, how to say things, what type of content, the way that he approaches, and you can approach your content. I thought it was really smart. When I started broadcasting, my program manager said, just bring in a little childhood toy, and I had a little Thundercat figurine that I brought in, put a little snarf in front of me, and I spoke to the toy. And he says, because you know what? Well, my program manager said back then, he said, listen, yeah, you've got to snap into some conversational mode. And because no one's in the studio with you, especially when you're starting out, doing the overnights, doing your graveyard shifts, doing your training, you kind of want to have something that doesn't have you thinking, well, there's a billion people listening to me, or whatever it may be, or 1,000 or 2 or 3 or 4, and I'm snapping into one, the alter ego, but also talking to a crowd. I need to speak to one person at the end of the day. So again, very obvious tips there, but if you use them, they really work, right? The third thing, if all else fails, which it shouldn't, right? Because we really need you to get the first 2 right as well to do some great radio. Have fun. You have to have fun. So 1, 2, and 3, have fun. Because if you're passionate about something, that means you're going to be good at it too. And if you're good at something, passionate at something, I'm telling you now, 10 to 1, it's because you're having fun doing it.
Receiver down line.
So we go there, to put in the number.
Put in the number, phone rings. Obviously, after phone ringing, speak to the person, tell them to hold so you can send them to the desk.
Okay.
And
Okay. Middle one, eh?
middle one,
Top one.
and then top.
Yeah. Get that right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So middle, and then top,
Yeah.
and then desk.
The PFL. And then,
No, you can PFL if you want to talk off air.
yeah.
Then obviously when you go on air, it's on.
Can they hang up the phone? Can not like hang up, but they so you'll be online, eh?
Yeah.
Now, while you're PFLing and you are talking to them,
Yes.
you just tell them hold on. And now what do you do? You're just switching it off.
Yeah. So hang up. Yes. Awesome.
That one, there you go. Okay, that's it. Yep.
Main importance of this particular lesson is to understand, especially now more than ever, the way that we present and the way that we present the news. So the way that we construct it, right? What we decide to, because the thing is that we're saying news in terms of the radio show now. We've covered news as the I'm saying to you as the mandatory benchmark now, right? So the news aspect. We're talking about you as a presenter that goes and finds news, that goes and uses it to obviously have a conversation or inform your listener. And you have a responsibility that you will be held accountable for. I'm saying to you because if you again spread, you'll see there's different situations that you need to avoid, right? And break any one of these kind of rules, right? You will hold one your own credibility, one responsible, but then also immediately the station. And the thing is, the station is not going to fight for you. They're going to hang you out to dry. Do you understand? Because like you are a professional and you have been hired to do the work properly. So, like I say, it's good that I'm this kind of obviously lesson with its information, whatever it is with the BABJs who understand how to the relevance of obviously verified and justified and correct information, and how to um, obviously source that and turn that into something that is allowed to be public, all right, and provide knowledge. So knowledge is power. If you like empower someone, that's great. But if you remove power from them with, like I say, false information, man, that's like I say, it's an abuse of power. One, okay, but two, irresponsible, and you will again be held accountable. The listener will never trust you again. Once off. I'm just saying if you have to do it once. Okay, so let's talk about the phone ins, right? So these or the phone ins are the call outs. Do you understand? So people that are going to call in because you asked them to do so, they're going to send you a voice note, they're going to send you messages or whatever it is. Again, we have the three main inputs: is the obviously the live caller, the voice note, the WhatsApp voice note, and the SMS line that still is active. More for competitions and promos. Um, is more likely space to allow, let's say, like a 329945, SMS line. But we can. I mean, it's still open if people want to SMS, which they will not. I'm saying to you, they're allowed to obviously use the SMS line, right? But the other one is then the social media platforms, right? Which I'm going to say this in like one more time. Do not use the social media platforms to regurgitate, in other words, repeat the exact phoner that you are going to be doing on air. Use it, and you have to you have to train people, right? It's going to take a while unless you have already built an interactive, I'm saying, culture with, let's say, your followers, right? If you get on air and you're obviously putting content out there, and people have not got the culture. I've said this to you before. It's going to take a really long time for them to actually just take the bait and start just like typing in responses, either on your tweets or your Instagram posts, more easily probably and more likely on Twitter than on Instagram, where you find like responses actually. Okay, but again, they have to be something that is an added value extension of what it is that your content, your topic content is about. So some of the greatest editorial challenges in radio are met during a nice topical. Wow. Um, just change that. Nice topical phone in where critical editorial decisions must have, often be made within seconds and usually by the presenters themselves. So I'm just going to say this and then I'll explain. So you could possibly pre-record all the calls, but calls are generally taken live. Again, this now refers for us to be taking those voice. So the danger with that is obviously not the danger, the weakness in that is that it's one-sided and you cannot have a conversation with a person. You can put them on and you've got to
you got to also be choosy about how you want to use, let's say, back to back to back voice notes. Like, for example, in a feature where you don't need to respond sometimes, right? It depends on what the feature is about. It depends on what their opinion is in a call out. Like, if you want to just maybe take a live caller, then do voice notes and go to jingle music, that's okay. Um, but again, you, because you are well prepared, you are one, present, and also ready to make decisions on the spot as to what is the best way of cultivating that communication and interaction between you and that listener. So minute by minute, okay, whether they have the authority and responsibility of the producer or editor of the program. So in other words, it doesn't matter where. You have to ask yourself, whether you're holding the authority and responsibility, like, within its value. In other words, like, are you doing the right thing? While there may be also like the physical aspects of taking the calls and stuff, right? And everyone, so I don't know why students say this the whole time, because I also am surprised at it at a third year level, because your previous lecturers will have said this to you if you had asked them the same question, like, does everyone get a producer, and why not? Like, why can I not get a producer? It's never worked that way. I'm saying only shows with teams, right? And speciality shows get producers, right? So so when we're saying teams, you're looking at the breakfast, you're looking at the drive. We might add a producer for a heavy content based show. So let's say if they decide that, like I say, a night, like I said, the nighttime breakfast is a good one, only because a lot of talk can happen within the 6 to 9 or the 7 to 10, whatever it may be. It could be, like I say, a specialty show like Marawa's sports show, which needs a producer, do you understand, to work with him, because it is like it's heavily based on specialized content. But also producers were also assigned to the top 40 to find content for it, to find obviously material that is music related, top 40 related, station related, etc., etc., right? So that the presenter can come in and do what is actually a mandate from the station and not from themselves, right? Okay. So just note that, like, you must be able to do both roles, because you're going to, if you want to go further in broadcasting, I'm saying you are going to do both roles, right? So you should be able to do both roles, present and, let me just see someone coming in. uh okay. Okay, we have two courses here. All right, so I'm just going to continue. All right, so here we go. So let's look at some aspects of the presentation. Right, if you decide that you are going to be a shock jock, it is at your own peril. Right, because the shock jock nature. So the kind of that stimulating, that they push your buttons, that type of stuff has to actually be your personality, like you in real life. But the shock jock is not supposed to be hated, right? So the shock jock is actually supposed to be controversial, sure, 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 and predominantly controversial and very pushy, like I say, very forward, very abrasive, whatever it may be. But they still have to be liked at the end of the day. So the thing is that a lot of people come in with a shock jock nature and say, "Oh, I'm a shock jock," whatever it is. But then they they basically piss people off, right? And then they don't want to listen to you because you're not someone they want to talk to, right? Or have a conversation with, or hear any information coming, as I'm saying to you. So you are choosing to be a leader for them in information. So you are giving them information. They're going to say, no, I'm not going to listen to you, because you're, one, very annoying, and two, you're like I say, you're brash, and I don't. People don't like that in normal life. They're not going to like it on radio either, right? So it might be a novelty, like it has been in our country, with jocks, right? That force it. I'm saying that force it. So again, obviously the go-to shock jock has always been Gareth Clough, right? So since he was at Tux, like and throughout his career, through 702, through 5, or whatever it may be, even now at Cliff Central, he is still a shock jock. But if you look at the OG shock jocks, and again, I say the biggest one or most famous one is Howard Stern. You should really go watch the movie. I think it's called Private Parts. He obviously plays himself, right? But he does decide to balance like the need for a shock nature, like the call for like controversial topics to be covered, right? And the thing is that people, if you listen to a shock jock that is well balanced and also talented, like for example, let's just take Gareth Cliff. Like there was enough of him that covered like uh, like like other aspects and was didn't have to be shocking just for the sake of being shocking. You understand? So when it's a part of your personality, right? And also that doesn't mean that a presenter that isn't a shock jock doesn't have to cover controversial topics. Do you understand? You should be able to address any type of content, right? Okay, as a presenter, and not hide away or shy away from doing them. You'll do it in your own way and for your and in a point of view that your listener at that show, in for that show, at that time of day, blah blah blah, is going to respond well at. All right, okay. Remember, you must be liked. Otherwise, like you're not gonna like. There's no point in putting you on radio, right? Okay, or TV even, or whatever it is, right? The presenter helps the caller to put across their point of view, developing their argument with phrases such as, so, are you suggesting? Or when is this happening? So we need to pre-screen those callers. So in a live show, you're going to have, let's say you have a WhatsApp message come in and you want to have a live conversation with this person, right? You're going to phone them off air. The songs are going to be playing, whatever it may be. And then you're going to see what they actually have to say about the subject matter. So you can get the best parts of it when you go on air. So it's not that, hi, how are you? Fine and you, thanks. So just tell me what you think. No, that's not how we deal with callers, right? We have to come in at the climax of what is important, of what they give to us, right? Okay. And then build a conversation, not an interview. Sorry, not a Q&A session, right? A conversation just like you would hold in an interview. So if appropriate, the presenter's challenges will challenge the caller without giving away his or her own personal point of view. Again, Ready Klabu like was one of the best at this, for example. But there are many presenters that are. I mean, this is just to be like actually a common skill of your own, right? So you will definitely always come in with an ulterior motive because you are a human being and you can't be completely objective, right? So you will choose the content in a way that obviously like pushes a certain agenda as much as it can, right? But you don't want to be the one that sits there and makes the statements and then gets crucified for them, right? You want to put on listeners that also help the narrative for what should be said with different points of views. So if you know that this person is going to help you continue your story, but surely many people would argue that you challenge them, right? And that's great because then they're going to have a good, rich reaction too, right? So especially also when you're interviewing, right, and you really need to actually get the full story from this person that you are chatting to. Maybe, like I say, it's especially with a politician or some kind of scandal. So with that, what is he? Is it Anton or Andre? It doesn't matter. The guy from Telkom. It's Andre van Beek that must put this book out now. And now all of a sudden he's got a book. He just resigned as the CEO from ESCOM. Anyway, my point is like you want to put him on air. Do you understand? And you want to interrogate this man because you are an investigative journalist at the end of the day as a presenter. The caller has potential to contribute further. You want to use them, right? And don't put on two callers that are going to repeat the same thing. That's why you screen them. That's why you see the messages and listen to the WhatsApp messages and and don't put on, obviously the same opinions, right?
I'm Mark Ramsey. I'm really pleased to be talking to the head of Fig Media One. That would be the one and only Bill Figgenshoe. Bill is, of course, a well-known figure in radio circles over the years. You've run pretty much just about everything that hasn't run you, Bill. Isn't that right?
Right. And then in some cases, they run me off as a matter of fact.
And Fig Media One is a company that's built to kind of establish and position and brand media products and products that might have media extensions, because everything's media to one degree or another, isn't it, nowadays?
Right. Yes.
Fig, one of the things we wanted to talk about, one of the things you mentioned to me once before, was this idea of what you described as branded personalities. And you wrote me a note saying branded personalities are going to be big and then $3 in the future. Can you talk about what you mean by branded personalities and why that upside is so great?
Sure, Mark. The thing that strikes me about brands and branding is that looking at the new technology that's coming out, I think that revenue producing personalities, let's talk about radio for a second. If you're an equity morning show, you have a big morning show in a market and you have high ratings and you generate a lot of revenue. I believe that the issue is going to change over the years because people are not going to select, given the technology that I'm looking at, Siri, Entune, Ford's product, Ford Sync. We know that technology is driving, in fact, a lot of car sales, but people are going to select their personalities by brand name, not necessarily by station. I believe people are loyal to people, not the delivery system. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, if I say, oh, let's put on Rush Limbaugh, or, oh, let's put on Mike and Kate, the mixed morning show, people are going to select it by brands. They're not going to say, say, Siri, tune to 101.1 and in Morning Drive. The consumer is now in control. And because the consumer is in control, what time does the morning show begin? The morning show begins when I say it begins, not necessarily at 6 a.m. So if I have Siri, which was announced last week, Mark, or the week before, I think, it's going to be in General Motors cars, it's going to be in Mercedes, and I realize it takes a few years to get this technology in. But it's starting with younger people. They're putting the technology in the low-end cars, Ford Focus, the smaller cars, in addition to the big luxury cars. But the issue is going to be that I'm going to select ESPN. I'm going to select Glenn Beck. I'm going to select Norman Goldman. I'm going to select Mike and Kate by brand name, not necessarily by station. So if I download an app for my radio station, all that does is give me a destination to a station that delivers music, maybe sports, but a plethora of personalities. But I believe the next step is that people will select by brand name. I want to hear Rush Limbaugh, and I want to hear it now. Siri, play me Rush Limbaugh, Howard Stern.
Let me stop you there because there are a bunch of questions I have about that. So in order to enable that, you need to have an app which allows you to do it, right? Because if I say I want Rush Limbaugh, you've got to you have to either have a Rush Limbaugh app that's designated, or you need to have some app that enables the receiving of Rush Limbaugh and does so on demand, right?
Right, correct. If I were a radio station today that had a contract with a big morning show, the first thing I would create would be an Android and an Apple, and to what extent Windows is coming out with Windows 8, with the next app that is branding that morning show. Because that's the way people are going to select shows, by name, not necessarily by station. So, Mark, to answer your question, is the brand the station or is the brand the personality?
Right.
And if that major winning morning show goes across the street, you can bet that audience is going to follow them.
Let's talk about that for a sec, because that's a great question. Because I guess it would be argued that in some cases the brand is the radio station. In some cases the brand is definitely not the radio station, right?
Correct. In San Diego, where you are, you had, who was it, Jeff and Jer?
Yes.
And Jeff and Jer have migrated through a few stations over the years, correct?
Right.
And the audience has migrated with them. So there's no reason to not believe that if Jeff and Jer, to use an example, come out with the Jeff and Jer app, and that app, by the way, may be downloaded for free, and maybe I'd like to hear the show for $5 a month for without commercials or with commercials for free. So the consumer will basically choose their content because remember, there's only 24 hours in a day. My commute to work is the same commute it was 5 years ago. So it's how I'm using my time. So I believe that the next generation of content delivery will be brand based and in fact subscription based in some cases. So, would a consumer pay $5 a month? Not a lot of money. $5 a month to hear their favorite show that they've been listening to for years, commercial free? I believe there's a market for that.
And just for the record, you're not making this up, right? You're actually practicing what you're preaching, are you not?
Yeah, I am.
Talk about some of those
I mean, I
successes.
have a client. My clients, and I'm not pitching. Although I think he's a terrific talent. But we started Norman Goldman, a talk show host, and is on in a bunch of markets. But he's also available with an iPhone app. And because he's an attorney, we designed some additional content called Beyond the Norm, which is basically legal for dummies. It's people who wanted insight into the law world. And without revealing specific numbers, I can tell you that when we launched the Apple app and the Android app, and people were able to just hit the button and hear him, and so for an additional $5 a month, I can hear the show on demand, and I also get the Legal for Dummies stuff that he does, which is basically an 8 or 9 minute talk every day about legal issues, Supreme Court and stuff. $5 a month, I can tell you we're getting thousands of subscriptions, thousands of people who put it on their credit card. It hits every month. It's a de minimis amount of money that people would be willing to pay for to hear their favorite content commercial free. And if you're able to provide that, either as a broadcaster or as a personality, and Tom Likas will tell you the same thing, that there's a new world out there in terms of brand distribution. If you have a strong brand, whether it's Tom Likas, Jeff and Jared, Norman Goldman, Mike and Kate, our morning show in Boise, Idaho, there's an audience that will pay an amount of money to hear their show on demand, commercial free, when they want to, not when you broadcast it.
There's another aspect to this too, isn't there? And that is that when you have a brand like that, you have these relationships with people, and that gives you as a brand the freedom to create new elements that are extensions of your brand. You were talking about Glenn Beck earlier.
Yeah. If you have Glenn Beck, for instance, has a company that launched the Blaze. It's a news portal. That's available, theblaze.com, which is extraordinarily successful. I think with the new Clear Channel, they're trying to do the deal with the record companies where it's a revenue-based model, not a listener based model where you pay for more listeners that you get. So the Pandora model, for instance, the Slacker model is the more listeners they get, the more they pay in fees. Under the revenue base, if I make money, you make money. And at least that's a lot more predictable. I see the wisdom in what Clear Channel has done, by the way, and I think it's pretty bright. I'd love to see the industry go that way because the more Pandora listeners, they pick up tons of them. They certainly pay more for every listener. In the radio world, we don't pay more. Whether we have a 1 share or a 10 share, we pay the same for those listeners, our cost of delivering the listeners. If you are a personality, if you own a market, and I read the trades every day just like you do, and you see Joe Blow, the big personality, was let go under a contract dispute. I believe the future will allow in a local session, in a local market, where if you have an app, you can develop that app. You can build your personality online, on demand, in the car, on the dash, $4 or $5 a month, commercial free, or free with commercials, your choice. And broadcasters, I'm concerned, Mark, that broadcasters are still worried about the station down the street. You know, the guy who they compete with head to head. And I think the future is not so much that station, although that's important, but there's this other place that listeners, if I only have a 30-minute commute to work in the morning, I'm going to have my favorite local station. I might have satellite. I may have the show my favorite show that's on my app. Remember, it's on my dashboard. And looking at what the dashboard's going to look like in the next few years, it's going to look like your iPhone, you know, with the apps on it. And people are going to select the personality. I want to hear ESPN. I want to hear Glenn Beck. I want to hear Norman Goldman. I want to hear Mike and Kate. I want to hear Jeff and Jared. That's the difference.
And doesn't it follow from that it's not distributing the content that's most important, it's owning the content?
Absolutely right. Absolutely, Mark. If you own the content, you're the king of the world. It's just a matter of making sure that all the distribution channels are there. We want to be where the people are. As a personality, you do not want to be limited to AM or FM, not when they're selling 81 million smartphones a year last year that have the capability of putting you on demand in real time right now. People are not going to wait for your show to begin. They want to hear it now. In PPM, in some markets, and I haven't seen them all, I'll admit, but the average time spent listening is 9 minutes. 9 minutes with PPM. Can you imagine you're doing a 3-hour show or a 4-hour show and your average audience is listening only 9 minutes? So if it were on demand, commercial free, and they would be willing to pay an amount of money for it, I suspect they would listen a lot more to your show.
Bill Figgenshoe is the fabulous head of Fig Media One. Among other things, Fig helps branded personalities become branded personalities and helps make that cash register ring.
Yeah.
Fig, thanks for your input. You've been such an incredible force in the radio industry for so many years. I am really, really excited for you, pleased and proud to call you up here and hear the things you talk about as it relates to the future of this industry and the people who work in it. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Mark. I love it. And as you do, I'm still as excited about the business today as when we put our feet on the floor 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's a different world. We have to realize it. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity.
Absolutely it is. Thank you, Fig.
Thanks, Mark.
Right, hello again, and welcome to another very short tip on radio broadcasting, how to become a better radio presenter with myself, Chris Jordan. Thanks again to all our subscribers on chrisjordanmedia.net. Make sure that you visit the site, and you can always contact me at info@chrisjordanmedia.net any one time, or just send me a message. Always cool. See, I look at this. This is terrible lighting here. That's how much I love you, because I'm willing to sacrifice all of this just so that you can get more of this. Or I could have just picked another room, but okay, here we go. It's off the cuff. So today's very short tip is about how to really put together this beautiful, silky, smooth, honey-filled, wonderful link that just keeps flowing and flowing. And you see what I've just done there? I've used a bit of a crutch word, right? Right now, with all my students, we are at a bit of a crossroads because they have a number of crutch words. I'm perfectly guilty of that. I'm a human being. When I'm not on air, when I'm not doing a bit of a video here as well, I've got so many crutch words that I constantly rely on. Like, you know what I mean, you know what I'm saying. And the problem with that is that once a listener picks up on your crutch word and you use it just enough times for them to, again, once up, just pick up on it. That's all they hear throughout the entire link. And the secret to that is, or the secret to fixing that is to be like properly present. I've even used a little bit of crutch word there, but it was natural. And we get some of our biggest presenters, I say broadcasters around the world, Larry King, we have Piers Morgan, we have Oprah Winfrey, Barbara Walters, whoever it is, Ryan Seacrest, doesn't matter. I mentioned Ryan quite a lot. I think I mentioned him in the last video too. They all use crutch words, but it's in a very natural manner. It becomes part of the conversation, but it doesn't become a filler to conversation. How do you become immersely present? Okay, so you're immersing yourself within that link. is basically to have your head and your mouth, so your mind and your thoughts and your words at the very, 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 very same place all the time, so that you can constantly focus. Watch what I'm doing right now, up, down, here, there, speaking to you without using any of my crutch words, without feeling as though I need to think about something, just even though that looked like I was about to think about something. And I know who I'm talking to, what I want to say, why I want to say it, and what I want to get out of you in return by engaging you in a conversation that really isn't distracted. Because if I'm not here, then why would you be here too? So remember that. It really does work. I do that on an ongoing basis. I really am one of the prime examples of being guilty using crutch words on an ongoing basis, and it really, really, really is a big, 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 big problem for broadcasters if you don't know how to manage it. So be present, keep the two on the same page, and you're going to do just fine. Try it out for yourself. I'll see you soon.
Let's go through more. Taste and decency, right? So the presenter must never lose their cool. That's the big thing, right? So even if this person is rude or they are abrasive or whatever it is, let them dig their own grave. One, okay? If it's a caller or if it's someone that you're interviewing or whatever it may be, let them dig their own grave. Do not, I'm saying to you in terms of do not let your emotions get the better of you. If they do, then control them in such a way that they can be an asset to you at the end of the day, right? Do not do not go to bad taste. So, in other words, go like hit below the belt. Even if you're trying to be like like a little subtle about it, don't. Like there's no reason, because then you obviously bring yourself to a lower level, right? You can make the statements and opinions that you need to have without having to go, like I say, to the gutter. Do you understand? So personal bias, like we don't care about your personal opinion. So once again, this, for example, is really well painted for, let's say, like a racist human being, or someone that is a bigot, or someone that is a classist or a sexist or whatever it is, right? All the things that have a very strong kind of like what is it, right wingist, and obviously not correct. I mean, as a human being, who wants to listen to any of that? Because it's all in some or other manner hate speech, right? You understand? So you cannot sit and have a strong opinion about things like that, but you can address each issue and bring up very valid, obviously, like reflections of society and your own experience, if you do it in a smart, calculated, and strategic manner. That is the thing. So we say to you, give us your opinion, but then you say, well, but there's a rule against bias. No, this is when you become intolerant, right? We don't have space for that. Okay, so so here it is. Once the listeners know the presenter's real views, their ability to act as devil's advocate is lost. So what is devil's advocate at the end of the day? You want to play both sides, right? Um, so playing both sides means like I can. Oh, sorry, I'm going to the wrong one. Right. So it means that I can bring up obviously the very obvious incorrect. I'm saying, let's say there's something that's an extreme action, or something that's happened in the country, right? But I can work from the other side to get a bigger reaction as well through the conversation, not just to like again kind of push that listener or whoever I'm speaking to on the phone or whatever it is, right? But I want to be able to also say, to give context to what I am actually talking about, and so gives it validity and credibility. Advice and counseling, you have to be very careful, right? Because of the way that you do not have the professional skill set. So you are not a qualified psychologist, a qualified whatever it is, a therapist, whatever it may be, right? Counselor, motivator, it doesn't matter, right? Whatever it is, Like because so you must not give direct advice to someone's personal problems, right? Because the thing is that people that call in when we do like an advice thing, or and so you obviously thinking about ask a man, blah blah blah. There's many different versions of ask a man. Please, like it's not an original concept, but I'm saying to you, like the fact that I mean, we've spoken about also Ask a Man. The point is that it is an advice feature piece, right? And yes, you see, those people are in desperate situations. They're on desperate. You have no idea how far they are away from the brink of disaster. So don't be the one to push them. Rather, let a professional, because a professional will be very kind of neutral in pushing them in the healthier direction with also finding out more information. You can help them do that as well because so you're a conduit of information. In other words, you are like I say, the fiber optic cable, whatever it is, between transmission of information. So you will link, let's say, the caller to the context of the content and the context of the content to an expert professional in this case. You should have a list of reputable local help in the case of these situations so you can ask them rather and also add and ask questions to this particular expert professional that have to do with the situation. So, for example, there is a woman. Let's just do this something very general that is being abused by her husband, and she's in a situation where she can't actually go anywhere. Do you understand? So escape anywhere. Um, it's very hard to actually find I'm saying to go let's say go to the police and file a case or whatever it is or report because you can also self-inflict and you can entrap that man, which obviously the police have noticed many times and has happened before, so they don't do that easily. So you might need some information, some just direct advice on what to do. So you got to get the right, obviously. So you got to get obviously the police on the line, for example, and a social worker on the line, and you would have to get also maybe a lawyer, like someone that does obviously that works for the government. So they do. I'm not too sure as to the two sides of the case. In other words, the one will always no, I have no idea what any law terms, right? But there's a defender, obviously, of let's say the I'm saying the community of the people, and then there'll be let's say someone that will represent let's say this abusive husband, right? Defendant, that's a defendant. He's a defendant. Okay. I don't know what, let's say, the other person will be called. All right. Anyway, licensed broadcasting channels are required to maintain a balance of, let's say, political matters, right? So, for example, you'll notice this first and foremost in advertising when the elections will come by. You're not allowed advertising I'm saying to one party without having the opposing party advertised as well when they do their PSAs, right? Their public service announcements. But you must also, like, you can't also do a call out without having the political party on the line and say, oh, but we're accusing the ANC about this and this and this, but you and then not put them on the line. That's unfair and that's misleading and biased information, right? So as you say, as I said, there's stringent rules that do apply before elections happen, so you as a station and as a medium, I'm saying information medium, you keep you don't try and turn or even by accident turn the weight or the balance in either or direction, right? Okay, so you can easily, if we want to talk about politics, we do it all the time. You hear it all the time on radio, and we are allowed to speak about, let's say, failings of the ANC, or let's say, or the EFF of the DA, right? Okay, or of the IFP. I think those are the biggest parties. I'm saying to you, of the ruling parties. I'm saying in South Africa. All right, let's look at being liable, right? So any statements which implies a lack of honesty, ability, competence, or skill on the part of any person or body is is considered to be defamatory, right? Um, so you are now belittling their name without any justifiable reason. So, for example, we always say, let's say, product services. So, like a Checkers or like a shopping center or a whatever, it doesn't matter, a mechanic or a product, whatever it is, a product brand, and you are giving only one side of that information, right? Okay, and it could be about that's normally where people become very, I'm saying, reactive. I'm saying presenters. Oh, but I went to this restaurant and then I had this terrible waitress, or my food was like cold and raw, whatever it is. Like, why are you bringing it up? Like, at all. So, for example, like McDonald's. Let's say you want to say something against McDonald's that is factually correct as an experience. You have other people that also vouch for it. You must have McDonald's on the line to defend themselves. Otherwise, you will land up in court, right? And you will lose as well, because the thing is that this is a very basic concept that all presenters, I'm saying all broadcasters know, right? Court cases also, like, you must know that, for example, when court cases are actually happening, there's that decision that is being made by I'm saying, the, I don't know, whatever you call them, I'm not going to say the court itself, but obviously the judge or whatever it is, and that whole institution, they will say whether this can be, I'm saying, reporters or whatever it is can be in the courtroom, or they'll only receive, let's say, what the press releases are allowed to say about a case. Like, for example, again, like, so we've had a couple. I can't remember her name. The one that was hiring or gangster killers, or whatever it is, to kill. I think it was parts of her family as well, just to claim on their life insurance and such. And other people started going berserkers or whatever it may be. Can't remember her name exactly, but that was, like, for example, a case that we wanted to know what was happening, but I don't think we could actually see the actual broadcast. We could see, let's say, certain parts or outputs of the trial, because it was, again, long running. There were definitely coverage. There was different coverage about her sister, and her, obviously, I'm saying, her family relations and what they had to say and how they were supporting her, whatever it may have been. But anyway, the point is that it is selected by, and then it's given to, of what you're allowed to say. So, once again, also Oscar Pistorius with the killing. I mean, that was massive. There were assigned reporters there the whole day for months. I don't know. That thing carried on for about, I think, 3 or 4 months. Was in the actual trial, before it was actually given a sentence and so on.
That's my problem
Okay.
because I overanalyze things. I worry a lot, and yeah.
You caught us right in the middle of a conversation. So, welcome to a bit of a snippet on how to train students that are in a little bit of distress. Just a quick one here. Ezekiel is here. Hello.
Hello.
So, chrisjordanmedia.net is where you subscribe. And again, hello. The biggest thing that we're having a problem with, we're here with their final recordings and their demos for this semester. We're very excited about what we're going to get out of them. But Ezekiel just asked me now, you have a problem with creativity?
Yeah, coming up with content. I feel like it's hard. It's not for. I feel like it's not for me. I I can present stuff, but then to come up with content, it's like.
To be a creative is to be a broadcaster, is to be a creative. And I know that doesn't really help you because that's kind of just wishy-washy words out there. I've always said to you that you've got to believe that you never are afraid of running out of an idea. And ideas are not always great. You've got to work through really bad ideas to get to really good ones. Rule number one of working out a really great idea is to get the rubbish out of your system. Get the rubbish out, but you've got to develop a talent for knowing what is rubbish and what isn't at the end of the day. Do you feel like, I mean, when you look at your ideas, do you know the difference yet?
I don't think so.
Why?
I think when I come up with something like content, at first I think it's great content until I until when
Well, you go and execute it.
yes,
Yeah.
and then like then I feel like it's not gonna work out. Then I try something else. Then the same thing happens. Like
Cyclic. When you get into a cyclic wormhole, right, as in creativity, you've got to take a step back. My art teacher always said to me, when you create art, you got to start with it. You got to take a step back if you feel like you're too close to it, and you got to look at the bigger picture of it. You really do, and you got to maybe if you need to give it a day or so, if you got the time, give it a day or so. Come back to the content that you've come up with and see whether or not it immediately stands out as being bad or not, because you'll get in your gut. I call it the radio gut. We'll do a bit of a segment on that later on, but you've got to sit back, you've got to look at it from like a piece of art and say to yourself, listen, yeah, that's where the blemish is, that's where it doesn't stand out well, that's where it doesn't sound great. What you did is great. In other words, you've got to sit back, you've got to try it on different people as well, so they will respond to you. Respond and ask them, like, are the questions great, are they interested, do they want to engage, do they find the topics that you're talking about interesting at all. So that will tell you first. And if you want a personal opinion, people work in different ways. You can get a complete stranger or someone that's really close to you, but I wouldn't get someone in between, because these two people will tell you the truth. They will immediately. And I think that's really a big thing to understand. Is like, if you're starting out with your content, normally a bit later you really gain a bit of skill for it, but and you can tell the difference. Again, this is going to be great, this is going to work, this is not going to work, whatever it may be. In the beginning, you've got to give it a trial run.
I get what you're saying.
We'll be back with more. Well, I'm just going to give you a bit of a background as to we're freezing. It's like 1 degree out here in Pretoria, South Africa. Been quite nice and quiet because to save my voice, I'm going to be introducing a couple of segments in a couple of minutes' time, half an hour's time or so. So very short today. I've got to give you the context. I have been so ill this entire week. I am on so many meds right now. I cannot even count them. It might as well be a pharmacy in my house, and it made me think. Yesterday I did a show as well, and today's lesson is really about, and it sounds pretty bad, but it's true. Suck it up and show up. If you're going to commit for anything in your business, if it's going to be for a client or if it's going to be for your station manager or for your station, you got to suck it up and show up, do your job. It's something that, I mean, if you had to do a flow chart as to what it is that would determine whether you're going to do a show or not, it would be like, are you dying? Yes, then you're good, okay? Then you can stay at home. If it's a no, then you got to come to work and you got to do what you need to do. So I'm gonna let that sink in just for a little bit right there. And what's good about this little video and the little tip that I can give you for this week? Well, if you are committing to, again, I mean, we're here, we're doing an event, and I'm not bragging at all, by no means. I am just exactly like everybody else, doing their job, coming through. And later on, I can go and rest, right? As I need you to understand that to get through these things, you got to do your job 3 to 4 minutes at a time. If you're doing music radio, you just get on air, you suck it up, you show up, you care about your listeners, because they, as bad as it sounds, they don't really care about how you feel when you're saying, oh, I'm sick, I'm coughing, my voice is sore, I really want to apologize for that. I've heard that before on air. It's really off-putting as it is. Excuse me. My gosh, right there. Yeah, so you really need to sit back and say, I've got to take it a little bit at a time. I'm here to do my job, and that really gets your mental energy or your mental motivation moving straight past all the obstacles. And I mean, if you really are sick, you should really stay at home and get someone else who is fresh, who is ready to do what they need to do, and give the listeners exactly what they want, and just do the best for exactly what the listener needs. All right, I am ready. I think every time I'm starting a bit of a trend here on this channel. I should wear a different shirt. You always catch me on a day when I'm wearing my Superman shirt because today I need the wish me luck. As you can hear, nose, everything clogged as it is, but I've showed up, I've sucked it up, and I'm gonna definitely give them what they need. I'll see you soon.